basically, we have just passed a bill called Maintenance of Racial Harmony Bill. It looks good, right? It sounds good. It sounds politically correct, right? And nobody can argue that racial harmony is not important for Singapore. Definitely, correct. However, when we look into the details, normally, yeah, the details are the killing part of any narrative from PAP. They will try to sell you good policies based on politically correct narrative, so-called, right? Make no doubt about it. They will do that, like maintenance of racial harmony, religious harmony, and POFMA, no, prevention of uh, online falsehood. uh, it sounds very good, definitely, no doubt about that. Okay. However, when you actually go into it, go deep into it, you'll find that the details are 破不对半呢. How? No, I didn't prepare all my usual stuff, videos and images and all that, because I've been doing live chat for the whole week, introducing my candidates and all that. So a bit of lack of sleep, and I've been having a bit of meeting, but nevertheless, right, I'm very aware of what is going on in Parliament and off Parliament. So we have this bill. What does it entails? Now, if you read POFMA, when they first came out with this POFMA, they even go through public consultation, right? Wow, I have hearing some more. So you remember Han Hui and Kristen Han and this PJ Time, Dr. PJ Time, all attended, like questioning. Of course, Han Hui very naughty, go and show some books and all that, get booed out. But nevertheless, at least you have consultation process. So at that consultation, and in fact during parliamentary debate and all that, it was promised, POFMA is only for falsehood, right? And is very specific, only falsehood that threaten important things to the Singapore, like national security, undermine the Singapore government, right? But it didn't say on what degree. It's very subjective. If the minister felt that he's being targeted or is undermined the government, he's part of a government, right, minister. So it's extremely subjective and wide. No definition on that. If I'm going to define POFMA, very simple. Undermine the government or the national security, very simple. Right? You leak, you put false information that threaten national security. What is national security? That means you can create riot. Okay? You can create people who go out irrationally, right? Hitting each other. You can create racial riot or whatever riot it is. And that's national security. Or, right? You're saying that some countries is going to bomb us or whatever it is. These national security issues. Singapore thing you also becomes undermine national security. Where do you draw the line? And it ended up that they weaponized POFMA to shut out critics. What is it to do with activists who fought for anti-death penalty, right? Who fought for anti-death penalty? Not that I'm in line with the anti-death penalty. I have stated my position, my view very carefully, right? Very straightforward. I think the death penalty should be the last resort, right? And it must not be mandatory in any laws. You must let the judge go decide, because we employ the judge because we believe they are the wise men, to put the judgment whether this person deserves to die for whatever crimes they have committed. Right? I'm not totally anti-death penalty. Right? Well, this anti-death penalty activists got to do with national security. Undermine the government? I don't see it. It's being weaponized, POFMA. Not that I'm one of the POFMA king, so-called, being POFMA so many times. My case aside, my case is for public interest. Right? It's not about national security, it's about public interest. Whether the vaccine is safe. Right? Very simple, because nobody actually knows. Now more and more things coming up. It's okay. I will let the nature half of justice to shine upon all of us. It's happening in US, in UK. Right? It's happening. Whatever conspiracy theories that they thrown at us, or POFMA thrown at us, right? We will see the day that the whole truth, nothing but the whole truth, will be revealed. Right? So, for a government to weaponize such law, at least POFMA, you can go to court and challenge it. Okay, the first step is you write to the minister who issued the POFMA to say why you should not be POFMA. Actually, I have all rights because it's public interest. It's in the name of public interest. I made a lot of things clear. Okay? Never mind. I didn't bother because I know that 脸皮很薄的他们 okay, they will not admit that they have made the wrong judgment or wrong decision, whatever. Right? Because we are the political opponent. But what about political activists or anti-death penalty activists? They are not your political opponents. Right? At least you have checks and balances, so-called the mechanism of checks and balances. You can go to court if the minister disagree, continue to issue the POFMA. Right? You have to put whatever things like that. Right? You go to court to challenge them. No issue. Now, the concept of democracy is based on checks and balances. Of course, the Western concept is 3 power. For me, it's 5 powers. Never mind the difference of 2 powers. We talk about 3 powers. The first 3 powers: legislative, right, executive, and judiciary. Right? So at least the judiciary is the last resort to check on the power of the executive, whether they run online or not. Right? That's how it works. But when you come to the maintenance of racial harmony, you have absolutely no redress. You cannot go to court to ask any judge to do a judiciary review or to review the decision by one person, one minister only. POFMA is a lot of ministers. Like different ministries, different ministers can issue POFMA. Right? But this particular maintenance of racial harmony, right, restraining order, it's called restraining order, can only issue by one and only one minister. That is the Minister of Home Affairs. At the moment is, of course, Mr. Shanmugam, K. Shanmugam, right? And he also happens to be the Minister for Law. So these two positions put together is actually a conflict of interest already. You cannot be the one who write the law that empower yourself as a Minister of Home Affairs. Now, in my concept of separation of powers, checks and balances is not about parliamentary checks and balances only. Right? It's about institutional checks and balances. Right? And there should not have conflicted interests. Or else, like this case, the Minister of Law can enact laws that empower himself as a Minister of Home Affairs to have great powers, right? He basically have great powers. He's a judge. He's a judge to decide whether what you say is racial discrimination or cause racial discord. Of course, Workers' Party actually go against this. The the very weak, so-called very weak last resort of checks and balances is of course the president. Now, this concept actually came from me because I wanted the president to have more roles, to be the ultimate arbitrator, uh, uh, ultimate person to judge whether right or wrong, right, in a lot of things. Or rather, what I want is actually the election department come under the presidential office, like CPIB come under the presidential office, right? Like Auditor General comes under the presidential office, right? Or even the AGC should come under the presidential office so that the executive do not have a conflicted interest when they utilize all these or over control all these uh, departments. But instead, so this maintenance of um, racial harmony give the president the power to actually uh, disagree of this power and repeal it. However, there's a catch. Uh, PAP government is very good at this. It looks good, right? Wow, the president can actually be the one who decide whether the Minister of Law, right? Or no, sorry, Minister of Home Affairs, who happens to be a Minister of Law, have made the right decision to say that this guy have crossed the line in racial uh, uh, issues. But the president's power is actually very limited. It's actually putting on a leash. Why? He must listen to a council, the presidential council of religious, racial and religious council, right? They will tell the president, hey, this one, you cannot repeal it. It's correct, right? He have he might cause racial riot, right, or racial discord whatsoever. But who appointed this council? The cabinet, which of course includes the Minister of Law as well as the Minister of Home Affairs. Own self check own self. This is really own self check own self. So even when the president doesn't agree with this decision, he cannot come up with a decision that's in contradictory to the council advisors. Right? Now you must. So the Workers' Party actually went into this and said that how can an unelected bunch of people that was appointed by the same people who put up this law and execute this law, right, to decide what is right and what is wrong, to decide on the people who appoint them whether they are right or wrong, and the president cannot decide otherwise. Or if the council really um, uh, go against the minister, right? Imagine in the case that PAP lose power, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But just theoretical, right? But this council and this president is actually ex-PAP member, like Taman, right? And this council is actually appointed by the ex-PAP ministers. So they want to say this and that. Then the president will say, oh, you cannot use this against the ex-PAP people or the PAP MPs and or politicians. So the whole thing is actually quite screwed up. Who is the correct place, or where is the correct place to debate about this, it is always the High Court or the Supreme Court. Right? The idea of checks and balances within the three powers, legislative, judiciary, and executive, always lies with the judge. Checking on the executive power. Right? But this has been taken away. And I was told, because the FICA, when the FICA things came about, I was not really look into the details. I was told that I have to go do fact check on this. Right? FICA is the same. Right? When the minister decide that you are a political, you are a figure, not necessarily that you are a politician. You just have a normal person, that potential influence from foreign interference, right? You must subject to reports to the FICA office. You cannot say, I'm not. How can you do that? You cannot go to court and challenge the minister's decision. Again, who decide? FICA is administrated by MHA again, Minister of Home Affairs. You see, one person have a lot of powers, right? A lot of powers. Right? Not only from Ministry of Home Affairs, but also the Ministry of Law. Right? Highly concentrated powers. You cannot go to court. You can only make appeals to the same minister who decide this legislation, this law against you, to put you under FICA. Okay? So what is actually happening? How can the minister take over, right, the job of the judge to decide who is right and who is wrong? Yes, it might have a power to say that I want to arrest him. But of course, ultimately, the judge have to decide whether you are right or wrong. Right? Own self give own self power. No, only own self check own self. Right? That is the contention. Right? You know what? What worries me is very simple. Huh? What worries me is very simple. It has been shown that they have weaponized POFMA. Right? There are so many POFMA. I think over 150 POFMA already. Right? Going to be more since POFMA have been enacted. Right? Simi Saima POFMA. Right? Little kucing kurati also POFMA. Right? Until it was so prevalent that people start to shut up already. Don't get POFMA. Don't get POFMA. I was quite annoyed by this. I say there will always be asymmetric knowledge or information. Why? Because the government should have all the information one, right? It's almost impossible for the layman to have full information, or even when the information was publicized somewhere. Most laymen would not know where to get it. Okay? And more so when we look at the POFMA that comes in, it's no longer about facts. POFMA is not supposed to be used against opinion, right? Or interpretation. But they are using POFMA, right, by their own interpretation of what we write or what we say. This is, maybe most people do not feel about it, but this is a very scary thing, because you interpret what I say means this, then you POFMA me. And you're not. You don't put words into my mouth, right, or thoughts into my head, because that only arises in your head, not my head. Right? This is actually the thing I argue with the POFMA office when they interview me. Right? Right? I actually laid out the last moment I have was over this David Lam thing. I told them I did not say that. I only simply put facts out. Right? It's your interpretation, it's not what I meant. In fact, if you look at all my track record of my speeches or my live chat about this issue, it has been always consistent. This case is not easy because they are friends. Right? A friend's friend give. Can it be considered as bribery? I told them, you have to prove it. Right? And in fact, Iswaran have to thank me for that because I raised exactly the same concern, whether it is possible for the AGC, the government, to prove corruption intent in his case, because they are long-term friend, and that is why they use a more um, less use act against Iswaran, which I think is fair, and the judge, right, have made judgment about that. It's exactly my thinking, because there are precedent cases which says that, well, they have a potential contractual conflict of interest, but that women become the mistress of this guy. Right? But is the sexual favors, you call it sexual favors, but is it because they really fall in love? You must prove it. The sexual favors have in return materialized something material or substantial towards contracts or monetary return, right, from the government to these contractors. And that as the SCDF guy was acquitted because the agency cannot prove it. There was something in return for this favor, this sexual favor. That was the case I raised with the Poma office. So you can see more and more so. And when you come to maintenance of racial harmony, it doesn't matter whether you are putting facts or not. For example, you can say, oh, there was an example put up in in um, in some places. Wow, there are too many first people, right? In certain place, lopsided with certain racial representation, for example. Right? Is it racial? Is that non-factual? Statistically, it might be factual. But they can actually say that you actually breach the maintenance of racial harmony, because maintenance of racial harmony doesn't care whether what you put up are factual or not. You only to the discretion, that's a discretion power, very powerful, of the Minister of Home Affairs to decide. Oh, you say this, it's factual, but what is your intent? I do not know. I do not need to prove your intent, right? You must be up to something no good. And this, by putting up the factual like that, you are going to cause racial disharmony or discord, and he can issue the restraining order against you. That is what the law is all about. And what will be the long-term effect? Racial harmony is not something that is achieved by keeping differences or opinions among different races under the radar or under the carpet. Sweep under the carpet and pretend nothing happens, or no differences, or no ill feelings are going in between. No, it's not like that. Absolutely not. Our racial harmony can be progressive because we interact and we actually discuss and we disagree in a gentleman way. For example, when I was young, right? When an angry young man, I always debate with a lot of other people about race issue, right? I was from a SAP school, right? You know, SAP school, hardly you can see other race. Maybe once or only in a once in a blue moon, you have one Indian or one Malay student in SAP schools. I actually raised that question before. It is no good for any system of school in Singapore, like the SAP school, to only focus on the Chinese elite, to train the Chinese elite. I am a SAP school student. I say that, right? Because I understand that a person from a SAP school like me have very little interaction with other race or my contemporary, that means my peers. And it is no good for my upbringing. And I can tell you, among of my SAP school surrounding, a lot of my friends have very weird imagination, true or not, or concept or misconception of other races. And sometimes they do not even understand simple thing like Ramadan, right? Simple thing like why Muslim, right, cannot touch dogs, right? I only learned about it much later on because we do not have the opportunity of interaction. Now, if I say this, will I be put under the new law, restrained from talking about it? Well, you can restrain about talking about it, but the problem still exists. It's still unhealthy. Especially you have a bunch of elites who are supposed to be progressive, to be leading in the society in whatever context, especially in the civil service or even become ministers, right, who doesn't have this childhood experience of interaction with other races in their schooling days, instead going to work, right? So I actually suggest, why not SAP school also include other first languages students, like the Malay and Tamil? We still don't have it. And of course, there are other races who comment about SAP school in private, under closed doors. They felt that they are not fairly treated. If they say it out, they will be punished or they will be immediately said they are racist. But I'm a Chinese, I'm a person from SAP school, I've gone through the system, I understand the flaws of it, right? I'm raising it as an issue. But Shanmugam, of course, can put a restraining orders on me. No doubt about that. I'm not against my alma mater, River Valley High. I'm only concerned about the long-term impact for such system to exist. When you read through the parliamentary debates about race issue, the Chinese, Malay, Indian, and others, CMIO, right? So Mr. Leong Man Wai raised a question based on Edwin Tong's speech in the IPS forum. Because Edwin Tong said, oh, from time to time we might have to review the CMIO. Nobody knows what he's talking about. What do you mean by review? These are the four races that have been so-called Chinese, Malay, Indian, and others. in our public narrative. What do you mean by review? Do you want to add or minus or just do away with it? I guess that was the question asked, I believe. So Shanmugam gone give a 5-minute speech. I think more than 5 minutes, right? To explain why it's important and all that. Fine, right? Fine. Perfectly okay. And in fact, even Leong Man Wai is a good friend of mine, right? Said, okay, thank you, the minister, for, oh, no. Shanmugam at the end of his answers, then suddenly go and ask Leong Man why you ask this question? That was what reported. Then Man Wai came and said, oh, I thank you, the Mr. Minister, for replying this, and I'm clarification on this issue. I'm happy with it, right? I'm satisfied with it, right? Oh, then he said, oh, I raised this question because of Edwin Tong's a speech made in IPS, and of course, naturally, people will be interested to know, right? What is it review he's talking about, right? And then, you know what? If you watch the video recording of the parliamentary sitting, wow, Shanmugam come out already. And he actually make personal attack on Leong Man Wai. He provoked, Man Wai didn't say his reply is rubbish, he didn't answer the question, whatever. In fact, Man Wai was says, I'm very happy with your answers. Right? But Shanmugam took the opportunity to drag up what he have said about CECA a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, I think, right? And talk about something irrelevant about HDB. Condemned to live in HDB, whatever. My goodness. What is it got to do with his question about CMIO? Now, I know my wife personally. He's not racist. Free is not racist. I think he's better than me because he came from RI. RI have a mix of race with Malays and Indians. I came from a sub school, but I don't think my cohort have any other races. Right? None of us are not racist. Not that I don't have that experience means I am racist. In fact, my best friends in politics are Malays. Put it in simple terms. And Indians also. So why did Shanmugam bring out this CECA thing? CECA is comprehensive economic uh comprehensive economic wait, comprehensive economic what is the CECA? What is C means? I have to go in. My brain is not. But it's basically a free trade agreement, right, with India. Just happened is with India, a country like India with a homogeneous race. Some countries do not have homogeneous race. For example, Malaysia and Singapore, right? So you start to say that, oh, uh, you are racist by bringing it up. And during the debates, during the period of debates of this CECA thing, right? Not only I think other people in the parliament, PAP people also said Leong Man Wai is racist. And of course, there were reports that some PSP members, right, are afraid that there's so-called the racist undertone in bringing up CECA. But look, when we talk about CECA, we are talking about the details that We signed with India with regards to the labor exchange program. That means we allow them, the Indian professionals, we will hold lease. I think they expanded the lease from the initial lease. CECA was signed in 2004 or 2005, right? About 20 years already. Right? To access to our labor market, right? Come to our place. And of course, as a package, because it is free trade agreement. In free trade agreement, there are three things. Always remember, international trade, there are three things. Because it encompasses the concept of free market principles. What are free market principles? Right? Free mobility of labor, right? Free mobility, right, of goods and services. That means no tariff. And free mobility of funding, capital. That means there's no those red tapes put in investment from India, or we invest in India. Right? And in return for this, allowing Indians, right, whole list of profession to come to Singapore to work. In return, what we get? We get free form of capital investment. That means we can invest freely into India on strategic assets. What are strategic assets? For example, the airline. For example, utilities. Those are power station, telecoms. These are actually traditionally are called strategic assets that normally are protected by the government of any countries. Most countries will protect these assets. For example, US will not allow China to invest, right, in their telecoms company. Very simple, right? Very simple. Or in their power station, power supply network, because it's strategic. So in return, we have this. Why did the Indian government want the free labor to flow in? Okay, it's very simple. India cannot provide enough jobs for their own people, especially those with degrees and all that, or from the degree mills also, right? That is very simple. So they're exporting their unemployment. And by what are the benefits when they do that? These people who go out to Singapore or America to work, they will normally send back their money to feed their families. Correct? So 一石三鸟 lah, right? One stone, three birds. They solve their problem. That is why CECA has come about. It's nothing to do with race. It's basically the concept of such thing is actually quite unreasonable for us as a native Singaporeans. Why? Because we are just a tiny red dot. 2-3 million citizens. How many? What's the population of India? 1.3 billion. Now I think it's going to 1.4 billion. 1.4 billion, you know what is 1 billion? The concept of 1 billion. 1 billion is 1,000 million. We are not even 3% of their population. If you want to sign something like this that allows the huge population pool of professions or whatever jobs to come to Singapore, basically asking our own people to compete against such a group of people, is it fair to us? CECA Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. Yeah. So it's nothing to do with race. They deflected the fundamental question of why CECA is written that way. They're distracting this to race, or because you are racist. Right? Nothing to do with that. We are asking a very legitimate question. Because if we can't sign something like this with India, we can sign something like this with Vietnam. In fact, we are in talks of with Vietnam to have this so-called strategic partnership with Vietnam, deepen the relationship. And as I said, the relationship in trade is three. It's not just food and services, free flow of products and services, goods and services. It includes capital investment, right, in strategic things like banks and all that, as well as jobs, free mobility of labor. Right? Now, India did not went into the regional strategic comprehensive economic uh, partnership. This is something that when the TPP was out because of America pulled out. So there's another so-called free trade agreement group that comes out. It's called a recap, something like that. Right? Regional economic comprehensive group partnership. Sorry, right? With the ASEAN, along with China, along with Japan, and New Zealand and all that. India broke off of it because these countries, except Singapore, because Singapore signed with India already, these countries refuse to sign the same terms as CECA on the labor side, free mobility of labor among these people, among these countries. Why? You think they're stupid, man? It's not. Right? Because these countries, other countries, will protect the jobs of their own citizens first. Only Singapore. One and only one. Okay. Now, back to Shamugan. Why he raised this? He put on record, wow, all the document, all well prepared. Liu Mao is being ambushed, preempted and ambushed. You might think that in Parliament is for the MPs to ask the minister why you do this, why you do that, child of minister. But this time around, it turned around that the minister actually make a personal attack on the opposition MPs. Wow, with paper that, this your party members also got concern of racial undertone. In fact, he basically implied that Liu Mao is a racist. And they have been labeling him since ever he talked about CECA in Parliament. Right? As I said, CECA is about a free trade agreement, whether it's reasonable for a small country like us to open up our big doors by flooding our job market like this. Right? Why? First instinct that comes to me, of course, a lot of people say, bully, Leong Man Wai lah, this and that, talking about all this. Actually, that is not the main thing. The main thing is what? If criticizing CECA, the free trade agreement, there is equals, right, implies that you are racist. What does it mean? It means that during election time or any time, PAP can shut anyone or any politician like me in rallies or whichever platform to raise the issue of CECA because it is important. We want to question why the rationale why you open up our job market, flood our job market, right, with foreigners like this. Are you going to do it again with Vietnam, with some other countries? Nothing we sure about it. But once you equate that into a racial thing, right, create whether you're right or wrong, truth or not, doesn't count in this act. I already repeated that. It might even be true, but because by repeating this, you will create what racial discord. They, not they lah, the minister Shamugan can impose restrain anyone and everyone, not only a politician, to talk about CECA. He's a gag on us. And that is weaponizing the Maintenance of Racial Harmony Act as what they like to do with POFMA on us. See? And that is what is at stake. And that is why I think like Shamugan have put up this ambush attack on Leong Man Wai. Well, he's already in Hansard. Why you want to raise this issue again? At the time when Maintenance of Racial Harmony Act have been passed, you want to put up a legitimate reason, right, for yourself or for the PAP to put restraining orders against anyone during general election campaigning time to talk about CECA. Is that reasonable? Now, CECA is not about race because as far as I'm concerned, native Singaporeans, whether you are Chinese, you are Malay, you are Indian or others, all have come to me and tell me, wow, this CECA is very jialat. Never about race. Even the Indians come to complain to me. Local Indians, native Indians. Never about race. I would say majority of Singaporeans, regardless of race and language or religion, is concerned about CECA. And PAP should not be sticking his head like ostrich into the sandpit. Of course, if they cannot answer or they find that it's too overwhelming, they just get us and mute us. Put a gag order on everyone. Save their trouble. Everything is fine. Just mark my word. Seriously, just mark my word. This is exactly what they will do. Even before election time. This is exactly what they will do. Weaponize every legal tools they have set up for themselves. So Shirley also already said, right, during election, I sure use Hofma lah, right, FICA lah, wherever is possible. What do you mean by this? Remember, POFMA is about what? Undermining national security. Right? It is not a tool for the ruling party. We actually openly say that AP will use that during general election to smell anyone political opponent. I urge everyone to think carefully. What is at stake for the coming election? All these rules disguised with coated sugar, sweet talking. What is necessary about maintenance of racial harmony? Nobody can deny that, Nobody can say, no, that that, well, we should not maintain racial harmony. No, everyone agree, I agree. But this is not something for you to be weaponized to get people from talking about important issues, to twist it around, to misrepresent us or mischaracterize what we are trying to talk about. Because there are so many issues, so many policies that involve race. But CECA is not one of them. I can tell you CECA is not one of them. Because it just happened that it is a free trade agreement that we signed with India, mainland India. You see? You see the point? That's how it can be used or abused. And they only give you a prelude to that in Parliament, openly smearing their opponents, Mr. Leong Man Wai, my good friend, as racist. Total rubbish. We need to vote in more opposition members. At least 1/3. Why? Prevent them from doing all these things. To prevent them, because in order to pass this bill, the Racial Harmony Act, maintenance of racial harmony, they have to amend the Constitution. Why? Because in the Constitution, President is not supposed to have such power. Right? Only when you have 1/3 of opposition, you can block them from suka go and change the Constitution. If one day they find that they cannot maintain their power anymore, just before they lose their 2/3 majority, they just change the Constitution to monarchy lah. Then, of course, can. Never give the power that be a blank check. This is a lesson. So you must look beyond Leong Man Wai being attacked very viciously in Parliament, unprovoked. But it's not only they want to attack him when the election is coming. They're setting their ground, their reasoning, their legitimacy to use the Maintenance of Racial Harmony Act against anyone to talk about any policies that disadvantage them, like CECA. And it was never about race. It's about economic treaties. This is called economic treaties. Free trade agreement are economic treaties that we have signed with other countries. It can be India, it can be Vietnam, it can be Thailand, it can be China, it can be Russia, it can be Europe, it can be US, it can be any countries. It is never about race. It's about the concept embedded in that trade agreement. Should we have that type of contract written? Okay, that's all for today. Short one. I hope you like my chat, right? This is very simple. This is basically a rally speech already, right? And I need funds to win this election. In the past, I never asked for donations so openly, right? And so frequently. Right? This time round, I felt the need to get into Parliament. Not for me, because I'm seeing a lot of rubbish act being enacted. OFMA is one, FICA is one, and now maintenance of racial harmony. It's getting very scary to me. And of course, the population policies is getting us nowhere. But native Singaporeans will get into trouble if we continue on that path. The difficulties that we face in life, whether it's cost of living, whether it's constant breakdown of MRT. Today, just another breakdown. Not breakdown, got problems with the MRT system. Just happened. In our our healthcare system, Tan Tock Seng suddenly said, A&E, too many people, have to wait a very long time. We continue to have our population policies going that direction, going north. Our quality of life will go south. No doubt about that. And someone have to get into parliament to get it straight, to shake it up. And I believe I am that someone. I need a group, not just me. I need a group. As I said, 1/3. Workers' Party talk about 1/3. PSP talk about 1/3. STP talk about it. I'm talking about 1/3 of opposition members of parliament. It's important. And we cannot achieve that without funding. You know why? PAP have lots of fund beside their PCF, right? They have lots of funding. People's Association funded their grassroots, helped them to do grassroots work. That's why it pays money. And we have none. I estimated that for my party alone, to win seats, I need at least $200,000. No party will tell you how much they need, but I'm openly telling you that this is the amount of money that we need just to get into parliament and shake it up. Shake them up lah. Huh? You know what? When I look at Donald Trump and Elon Musk, although I don't agree with Donald Trump with some of his things, are like, well, I want to take Gaza lah, chase out the Palestinians and all that. I don't agree with that. And look at what Elon Musk is doing. What he empowered Elon Musk to do. Elon Musk went in with a Dodge, right? Which supposed to cut wastage, waste of money. A lot of money are wasted because the government, the US government is, the budget deficit is so high basically because they anyhow spend money. They spend money on what? LGBT agenda. It just came out. Right? And in fact, one of the chief in the treasury was so happy. He says that when I was young, he's I think about 50 plus, 60 years old. 20 years old when I worked in the treasury. So many politicians promised to cut costs, cut waste, but they have never achieved that. Only when Trump comes in and Elon Musk comes in, they cut. They found out that this money have been given to media. BBC was one of them. I was quite surprised. Right? And even George Soros, what Open Society was funded by US taxpayers' money. Even the WEF, World Economic Forum. Who goes and go to attend World Economic Forum? All the rich people. They fly in with their private jet. And they need Americans' money, taxpayers' money to fund them. My goodness. And that's for one thing that Trump and Elon Musk have done right. To cut the excessive and the ridiculous spending. Because US thought that it can continue to print money, US dollars, like nobody business. But in Singapore, although we cannot print Sing dollars like nobody's business like US, We can increase tax, water tax, whatever tax, and nobody's business. And don't tell me that there's no wastage in PAP government. There are lots of wastage. I'll talk about this wastage. Comparison to what Elon Musk is doing. We need somebody to get into parliament to scrutinize everything that they spend. You know, if you have been driving, my friend was telling me, they have been driving up and down this upper Bukit Timah road for so many years, almost 10 years. The same project on the canal have never stopped. I've been there for more than 5 years, 8 years. He was telling me, how can that be? How much money have been spent on that? He said, in China, right, projects like this will be completed in 1-2 years. It will not drag for years, beyond 5 years. It's ridiculous. It's just a small little canal compared to the huge canal was elsewhere. And we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on the Founders Memorial. And we've been spending millions of dollars. Right? I was told, right, Bukit Timah MRT, not MRT, Bukit Timah Community Center, you know how much it will cost? $200 million. Do you know Tampines, how much it costs? It's actually basically an integrated community center. $600 million. The T5 used to be saying, oh, 5 billion, but we do not know how much. Now it came up to $10 billion. We need Elon Musk in Singapore to kick the ass of all these people and scrutinize every penny they spend. And I want to get into parliament not because of anything else. We have to stop all this nonsense. Because PAP has lost its plot. It is trying to put up all funny kind of laws that they can weaponize against their opponents. Not only opponents like us, but even activists also use against them. We have to do something about it. And I really hope, with your support, we will make it. Trying to raise the funds. You can buy our t-shirts, right? Serve the people first. These t-shirts are designed with our concept that we think that what is lacking or what should not be happening in Singapore. Politicians should serve the people first, not their own rice bowl, not their own comfort. Right? And definitely, is to serve the people first. Huh? And definitely, we have too much bullshit from them. Right? Enough bullshit, definitely. Always trying to gaslight us. They are very good in all these marketing skills. Definitely, they have lots of expert in doing policy marketing. Nice sounding concept narrative. Ultimately, if we look deep enough, the details, you'll be frightened. Enough bullshit for that. Right? And definitely, the concept is we want to make Singapore our home again. Not a place that we struggle like a dungeon. Right? It's supposed to be home, not hell to us. If you watch what I have done with Sharon, there are still hungry students in our schools, our society, our native Singaporeans, hungry student who went hunger in 21st century Singapore. And we pride ourselves as the richest country in the world. No. Care of our people first. And definitely say no to own self, check own self. And now their own self give own self power. Right? We have to stop it. No more check own self, check own self. Last but not least, it is time to change. It's time to change the narrative. It's time to change the way we are going to. It's time to change population policies. It's not sustainable. It's creating hell for all of us. Right? And it's time to change for a better quality of life for all of us, not only the ministers. And yes, we can do it with your support. Right? All this t-shirt is $40 each. You can pay now me and drop me a private message and I will deliver to you. Right? Thank you and good night.